All right, so with this Alignment Essentials, a new version of bone therapy, perhaps, I want you to first kind of acknowledge your ability when you sit on your bolster and your feet are forward. You want to face towards the wall. I'm just facing to you so I can have some sort of connection here where I can, viscerally, to me, it feels like connection. Viscerally, I want you to notice when you're sitting upright, feet onto the blocks, the arches in the spine, right? So you have those three different, settings of the vertebral column. And the cervical column is what we're going to focus on in the beginning. And that's, I think, really important to try to refine that and actually let go of some tension there and keep the movement there really clean, since it can move in all directions. It can bob up and down and twist and arch and round. So we're going to work on what would be a nice natural extension of our spine. So you're going to have your feet on the blocks. You're going to scoot to the edge of your bolster, right? Now, of course, I can only go as far forward as my knees will let me go. So that's why you will decide your bolster, how close it is to those blocks, depending on your knees, how they'll bend. Okay, so get a belt and take a moment when you get this belt and you unbuckle and then wrap it around your mid-thigh. You're going to tighten that belt up as you connect it to the upper thigh. As far as you can tell when you're sitting, you're at the upper thigh. And make sure that it does feel like it's on the thicker padding of your legs, where it's thick. Okay. Now, the body's going to move from a coiling position to a lengthening, which is kind of extension of spine. But what you're going to do is, I want you to start to lower back off of the bolster, and I want you to push into your wall space and slide back so your head is on your blanket. Okay, this is a little different than some bridges I teach. Think of how many different bridge poses there are, huh? So I'm going to slide my blanket back enough so it's just under my head, and I'm actually going to slide back. So today's bridge pose, I want your feet to be touching the wall. You might have to do a lot of fussing on this one. I want your feet to touch the wall as much of your footprint can make it to the wall. If you need to get up again and reset, do it. It's worth it. And the shoulder blades for this one are going to touch the floor, okay? Sometimes we line this pose where it's just like a tip of the shoulder touches. I want you to feel like if there was something in your back that was pushing your ribs open, like, they're like, you're kind of breaking open the rib cage so there's space in the valley of the heart down to the belly button. This should feel like it's kind of broken open, okay? Now, there's not much you can do to get closer to the wall just by laying here. You might find you could put your feet on the side of the bolster on the floor and kind of scoot your bolster farther back. You can work some different ways so that you can center back onto it. But keep in the focus that your main delivery here is to tighten the legs, okay? You can add sand across the tops of the thighs. You really got to wrangle with your props today to start. And then spatially squeeze the shoulder blades back to the floor and open up the chest and the circulation drifting out through the hands. Feel if the neck has some flexion, if there's flexing of our neck in this position. This will be a place where we do quite a bit of study today, so be sure your head is on a blanket for right now, very flat. And then relax your eyes, receive your breath, feel the inhale filling up the corridor of the waist. And then as you exhale, to accept where your pose is at. There's always things that could be more refined, right? My feet could make a deeper imprint on the roots of my heels, but I have the balls of the feet pushing. And then give yourself permission to let the feet touch the wall, but not push them anymore, so that the hip flexors and the quadriceps, you know, one of the hip flexors, you know, is a quadricep. It is part of the quadricep muscle. So you might notice that these are all, this whole front leg, we'll think of it as one zone on two legs that we're working on releasing. So can you open the chest, keep the arms open out, feel the belly lift and lower, and really let the legs just be in this frame. One way to open up the hip flexors, right, is to actually feel that eccentric motion, that length in the front of the thigh bone. And we'll be activating that quite a bit today, so we'll do some blends of toning and lengthening. So this is a bit of a passive pattern right now for the legs. Okay, so about another 10 seconds here, very short duration ahead. Let each shape build on to the next. So feel where the waist is slightly balanced, right? The divided area in your body is really at the base of the sternum where the ribs intersect. That area is kind of breaking open. And then below that, the belly can usually be an even symmetrical place. And then you have the next division as the thighs. Okay, so let's start to slide the sand away, and we're going to come into a Supta Baddha Konasana with the bolster under our pelvis and our whole lower frame. So we're not going to really come off a whole lot of this bolster. So I want you to slide your feet, so you might feel the lower back retrieve a bit. Walk your feet up onto the bolster, and then unbuckle. And as you step your feet down, any movements you feel inspired to do in between these pose patterns, go for it. If you want to kick your legs up or anything is fine. But we'll step the feet outside of the bolster so they kind of hook onto the sides. And I want you to lift up your tush and push your bolster all the way to touch the blocks. Actually, maybe not all the way. So your bolster is still under the back of your pelvis. It's just not under your shoulder blades at all, okay? Not under your upper back anymore, just the pelvis. Step your feet together and then slide your feet together as your knees move open, okay? Feel if your feet tend to slide forward, try to get them as close as they can in, right? We don't have a belt to kind of pull them to stay, and we don't have blocks under them. So work intensely right now with your feet touching, your knees out, interlace your fingers, push your hands to the ceiling and back, straight back. Okay, now if your head is still on that blanket, that would be ideal. It's probably so flat you might not even notice it's there. Feel the arms reaching back, feel the knees motioning open. Your options are a few here. It's to acknowledge the inner thigh circulation, so moving from the quadricep to the adductor. Breathe deep. Now we're going to keep it rather active here. So as you move your knees back up to each other, right, next to each other, we'll take our feet down and try to bring your knees together. Okay, try to bring the knees to touching. Let the feet remain where they're at. We're not trying to walk our feet back to a Virasana leg position, but I want you to feel the knees touching for a moment, the arms still reaching back. So keep the arms steady and long, let the side ribs lengthen, okay? And now as I push into my feet to lift my hips up, my knees, oh, they moved apart. So as I lower my hands down to the bolster, I'm going to slide it over to the right. And I want you to actually have that bolster far enough over, lower your spine down. Take your arms open, knees to chest, and to the left and to the right go the knees. So they don't have anything underneath the back of the pelvis. Simply the legs are going to sweep side to side. Arms are open. Feel as the back of your pelvis is centered and rocking and moving, that you fine-tune this and you bring your knees into your chest. Try to use the lower abdominal muscles to create that direction, right? Instead of clutching onto the legs, really draw the knees in. And then feel if there is a possibility that you move closer into your chest. If your feet lift up, just feel. Can you recruit your tummy muscles? It's kind of a strange direction with your stomach, right? To strengthen by moving your knees in. Okay. So we'll take our feet so they lift up, and I want you to move from that 90-degree angle with the legs. Okay? And then as we move our feet forward, just 6 feet. Try to keep the abdominal muscles so they motion down to the earth. And maybe they go forward and down a little bit closer to 30 degrees. But try to keep your arms open. And if there's a portion of your back that is a little jittery, don't take the legs quite so far to the wall. Okay? Be honest. Now, as you bend your knees and your knees are moving towards the wall, I want you to scoot down. You're going to actually lower down and push the blocks aside. Push down to the wall. Actually, maybe you don't have to go very far, but you're in a Tadasana pose. So you have your feet pushing into the wall. You need a belt and a sandbag and your bolster on the right side. So I want you to push to the wall with your heels at the base. And true and honesty here. Feel if the tailbone is, that area is in a natural arch. So we're going to go away from this idea of tail tucking when we're trying to strengthen into our core and our back. And in essence, in the pelvic floor. So feel your natural curve, meaning I push into the feet. I feel my lower belly lightly in an arched pattern. Okay? And now we're going to take a sandbag, and it might be interesting for you to have a good 15 seconds or so with the sand across both thighs, and then feel the feet pushing. Really activate through the legs. Stretch your arms straight back, reaching. Okay, the upper back stays down, the brain stays on the floor. And then let's move our hands to the sandbag and move it to our left leg, and then bring the right knee up. Reset your left foot onto the wall. The sandbag is across the left leg, and we'll take our belt and we'll place it under our right foot and push into the belt with your right leg musculature. I want you to actually try to push into the belt forward towards the wall, although the leg is straight up, right, directionally, and then grab onto that belt with your hands and feel when both hands are practicing pulling. Okay, now set that bolster so it's at the very upper outer right thigh, right, so it's connected wide, lengthwise, right? You could push it out so it's extended out from your hip. I'm going to keep mine vertical straight next to my right thigh, okay? And then as I hold onto my belt with the right hand, I'm going to move my leg out so it kind of rests into that bolster. You might sense, well, that's not happening, my leg isn't resting, it's barely getting there. What you want to do is get that bolster truly in as close as you can, snug to the leg. And then as you lift up and extend out, press into your left foot, press out into your right heel. Balance your left arm open. And then let this shape continue along into your flexibility range expands. And can you let that right leg get a sensation of like touching into your bolster? As if there's a muscle on the outside of the leg, well, there might be, that pushes into the bolster. Kind of notice if that's even pushing into your bolster. Now as you come back up, we're going to deliberately switch the sides. You're going to pull, grab onto that belt with both hands, slip the belt off of the foot, and then when you switch sides, what you'll do is first start with the sand across both the top thighs, and then move it over to the left side of your mat. You might have some props nearby. Don't get too worked up. We're using lots of them today. And then sand to the right thigh, let the left leg stretch up, belt underfoot. Push, and then as you activate that leg and the musculature around the leg, you're going to actually push into the belt as if you're moving the leg to the wall, okay? Let the back stretch a little bit, right? Your hands holding the belt starts to accentuate openness across the shoulder blades. So that's not such a bad thing. The floor is your friend right now. The floor is quite helpful. And the wall to stabilize. Take the belt into both hands, the left hand only, and then move the left leg out. Okay, right foot pushes forward to the wall, down and into that wall space. So if your right leg is trying to turn out, that's a no-no, right? That's a loss of kind of power into the full leg all the way up into the hip. So I'm going to try to get my left leg to actually kind of rest into the bolster. Yeah, be a little in an awareness of your knee joint. So if your right or left knee is hyperextending, you might find a little micro bend is useful. Tiny little bend in your left knee can be essential to the alignment. Right arm is open, so we have both arm and leg opposites expanding. Really feel how the back muscles center and press. A few more breaths here. Remember, breath is your guide into deepening and to releasing. Even if you have a deep breath, you want to have a long releasing breath as well. Now with that left hand gripping onto the belt, we're going to move the leg back up center. Okay, now let's take off the sand. And what we'll do is we're going to bring our body as close to the wall as you can take yourself. So I want you to scoot all the way to the wall. Slide in your blanket, take yourself. You can actually roll up and get to the wall too. I'm just taking a different view of my body. In some ways, it's kind of interesting to crawl on your back this way. Find new ways of getting around. You never know. Okay, feet up on the wall. Okay, how close are you? You're at a right angle, so if you're too close, your knees are going to jut up and you're going to have trouble actually pushing into the wall. So I want you to get a feel that your feet are at a distance, and you're going to take a block between the knees. And essentially the block is spacing out your feet, right? So my feet are parallel up the wall, and as I reach my hips up, I do want a little bit under my little bit under my head. This is a very flat blanket, so it's more for aesthetics, I think. Okay. Now, as you lift and lower your spine down, feel the front of the legs, right? When you get your hips up, feel that micro bend and the extension of the spine, right? You're really reaching, not tucking the tailbone, though. I don't want you to have that focus of tightening in that zone. Feel where there's still an arch in the spine. Tailbone might feel in, but I want you to still feel the spine's arches. Lift and lower the back. Give it a couple more times. Arms could be besides you or they could move overhead. Now, when you feel the next time you start to lift up, I want you to first take the block away from between the knees, and then lift up, and then lift up enough, walk your feet up on the wall, that you can slide that block under the back of the pelvis. Now, I have my block right at the sacrum, and it's at the high height. Now, this is probably one of the only times when you use a wall to get yourself this high up, that you could use the block this high with pretty much ease. So whether your block is at the mid height, the second height, or the third height, I don't want you to aggravate yourself to do too high of an effort though, okay? So if the mid height is better, take the mid height. But try to rock back so you actually feel the back of the pelvis centered on that block, okay? If it's a little tippy, then you're not quite there. So you might have to play a bit with getting that block so it's really not about to fall over. It would be a bummer if you fell out of this pose. Okay, this type of height. So I have low height is out of the question, it's mid to high. It's gonna change the connection into your thyroid a little bit. So I want you to focus right now on your elbows, really tucked into your sides, okay? If you're challenged to get the arms in, you could take a belt between your hands underneath you, right towards the wall, grab the belt, palms towards the ceiling, and then open the chest, okay? So door one is bridge pose, starting to come up into shoulder stand here. Door two is that you bring the legs all the way up, okay? So for most of us that have practiced shoulder stand with a chair, will notice it's a pretty close second to the chair. You're higher up than you would be ever on your bolster for legs up with this height. The block is higher than the bolster this way. So I'm going to keep grabbing onto that belt. I love the belt for this one. It's just like for me the chair shoulder stand. The belt is like the rungs of a chair. So it's just a different way to balance my inner environment. Right, good for pelvic floor, reversing the gravitational pull on the organs, and the effects of gravity on the cardiovascular system, right? So feel when the legs are up. Now let's say you decide to keep your feet to the wall here. You can do that and still be in this pose. Might feel better for your back. Mainly we'd like you to try to be upside down. That's the key. You know, with the legs up in Viparita Karani by now, take a moment, go into the shape. If you haven't found your way there, this is the time. And then if you're not holding the belt, that's okay. Your arms could be down by your sides or out to cactus pose. Right? You could have them back. Feel the motion of the belly, creating the arch in your spine. Okay, now with a few more moments, especially those that are using the belt, feel the connection with pulling the belt and how tight you can get your arms closer in. And then we'll all feel the connection into the throat, the parathyroid, thyroid glands. Feel kind of that saturation in the upper chest. Bend your knees, place your feet at the wall, lift up your hips, let go of any belt that you're using there if you are, slide it off to the side. And then as you reach your hands to your block, I want you to first keep the hips up, then get rid of that block off to the side, hands on the hips, lower down through the back muscles. Try to take it slow so you're lowering down into your back. All the way down. I keep a pretty strong pressure into my feet. Okay. All right, so notice the kind of tabletop placement of your back muscles here. And now I want you to practice moving from your feet at the wall till you're gonna roll to the side. If you need to do a few rocks side to side before you come around to all fours, take a moment. And then we're gonna all meet in the next few moments to all fours, okay? So take a blanket, place it so it's at a good quarter fold, right? So you have it wide across your mat. You might prefer the fringes to the back. And I'm gonna have my blocks towards the front on the outsides. Okay, so placing your structure. So I tend to put my blanket on top of my lower legs, the lower thigh bones. I kind of lift it up to that space. And then when I reach my hands on the floor, I just let it drop down to the ground. It's usually perfect for me. Some of these things you just work into and out of. All right, so take a pretty large reach with your palms. Find your front paws, open them out, and then feel your feet touch to the wall, as much of your footprint as can be to start. Blanket is underneath, okay. Feel when you round your back and your hands press. What is the width of your hands that feels really good for your back? So I'm gonna go all the way to the edge of my mat, chin to chest. Really feel the whole curve of your spine, all the way through your chin tucking to your chest. And then when you arch your back, you push your hands down, you feel your head lower, feel the hips sway back, and then starting to arch the spine, lift the head up. Okay, so continue this process, knowing that it might take a while to learn how to mobilize your vertebrae, okay? So be a little explorative. Maybe you have a little spontaneity in you, and you'll round your back, and then arch your back, and then go a little further, a bigger round of your back. But the thing to emphasize, I think, for us is the cervical curves. Right? So your upper vertebral curve line. So when you do the cat pose, bring your chin in. And then when you do the arch, feel the weight in your hands and feel the motion of your head moving up. So it's not pushed by your eyes or your need to look somewhere. It's by moving your bones. So closing your eyes can be useful. Take a couple more, hands and knees, spine moves. And then when you come back to a neutral spine, we're gonna add, so hands go wide, and then we move into up dog, push into the wall, lengthen, and almost try to work your way a little farther forward, a little more length in the torso. You feel really good through the waist. And then when you come back, reach your hips towards the wall. Reach your seat to the wall. And then undulating action, round your back, chin to chest, all the way through. Including the direction, keep going, of how this is control in your abdominal organs, the pelvic organs, right? So I want to work on my foot power into the wall, and then empower that movement into my pelvis and then up into my chest muscles, my shoulders. Continue through. We're moving through up dog and child's pose. Okay, hands are quite wide. They might be turning out for you. Okay, now come back to table. And let's give this one a try. We're gonna have our hands a little bit in from the sides of the mat, a little bit in. When you lift up your knees, you're gonna tuck your right knee in towards your chest. And both knees are off the floor. And then bring your right foot back to the wall. Left knee tucks in towards the chest. And back to the wall. Now, this time you're gonna push your hips back and up to dog pose and reach your heels up at the wall so they're lifted up, but your toes, the balls of the feet press down. Feel your head press through the arms back towards the wall. Now bring both feet close together, big toes are near touching, and lift the right foot up the wall so you feel like you're going towards the splits. So right leg lifts up. Center your hips, circulating your chest muscles by pushing back so that you're not all relying on your arms. Lower that right foot down and change sides. Left foot up. You've only got two sides, so that's good for the strength work right now that we're working through, inverting and strengthening at the same time. Two things to help the immune system. We're both doing a little bit of exercise to the heart and obviously inverting. Now, step the left foot between the hands, make your way there, use momentum, and then grab your blocks inside the mat. And here's where it might be helpful for us because we're already up. Like we're upright, we don't want to drop the back knee down. It would take energy to get this back up. But I know stretching your quadricep will feel nice. So let's start with this upright pattern. I want you to bring your left knee so it's above your left ankle. It feels pretty anchored there. And then feel if you can push down to that foot and then maybe come up about halfway to a full risen lunge pose. So if you're pretty good here and you want to stay still relying on your hands touching your left thigh, mid-thigh, that's great. If you feel comfortable in pushing a little farther back, feel that right heel into the wall and feel the balance here. Instead of the belly pooching forward, see if you can move your spine straight up out of the roots of the pelvis. This is a challenging one. Okay, legs are all waking up here. Okay, press off the back foot, lower the right knee down to the blanket or just above, and then scoot your left foot farther forwards, and we'll stay focused on the right quadricep. Now, I lost touch with the wall by trying to get my knee down. So what you might find helpful is to work with that wall under, behind your foot. And maybe even the knee is a little off the blanket if you are sketched out by pushing to the blanket. So we're working on this kind of eccentric contraction. It's sort of interesting how the work with our quadriceps, often in restorative practices that we stretch them passively, right? Like we'll put a block under the back of the pelvis and let the legs just stretch out. So this pose and side sage, those are the ways that we can stretch them. So there's a balance of active and passive. I think those might be ways that we can get some lasting change in those spaces, but That's just recent study for me. In some ways it's been ongoing, but it's to find what would be my emphasis to get this area to loosen. So when we feel this right thigh stretching back, what I want you to do is take both of your blocks flat, under hands, okay? Send the left foot back, left knee back as well. And then reach forward into up dog. So you have both hands onto the blocks and lengthen through the front. Like you just can't get enough of that reach. Just trying to stretch it up. Front of the thighs lengthening. Hands are pressing. We're going to come back to table. Now cat pose. Chin to chest, round the back. Okay, look back at your thighs, okay? And then slide the right foot forward. And as you step it through, this time we're gonna let the toes hook on the back foot, scoot the blocks up a little higher, and lift up the back knee, and start to work your way up. Sometimes the decision of getting up is better than going slowly, trying to meticulously get it all perfect. And I imagine one side feels a different stability. So notice the front of that left thigh. Notice your centered hips, the balance of the rib cage. The arms could be down, they could be open, they could be up. Crescent lunge, right? But feel if you can get this pelvic connuption going on here. So the back thigh is actually trying to lengthen, like you consider lengthening your spine. Right? Consider lengthening the spine of the thigh. Okay? Keep going forward and down into the blocks, and then carefully lower the back knee, even if it's just above the blankie. Use the wall behind that foot, unless it's somewhere else. Okay, but get a feel of how your knee is moving on the front leg, not over the toes, but feel where it's aligned. Breathe. We're getting through it here. This is kind of interesting work today so far. Different patterning. Okay, now when you start to move yourself front, what we'll do, we'll go through a half sun salute just for fun. So we're going to push off the back foot. I'm going to use actually both legs are required here, aren't they? So step the left foot to the right, have your feet, kind of plunk down from under your hips for this one. So feel how your feet are under your hips. And then sweep your arms up and come up to standing. Feel when you're standing towards the front of your mat. Feel where your feet, your legs are positioned under your hip joints. And notice the perplexity of kind of the knee joint, the hip joint. And then I want you to start to reach your seat back so you're moving in towards chair pose, right? Arms are reaching, tush is reaching back, so you have a pattern where you're leaning a little bit and this belly is in balance, okay? Lift back up, straighten up, bring your arms straight up as you think. Have the natural curve of your spine. This is huge. Natural curve of the spine is important. Inhale, look up, lift your gaze, lift the neck so that upper spine is stretching all the way. And then as you come forwards, stretch the hamstrings for a moment. They get a little time here. And feel the sitting bones lifting towards the ceiling. If it's rather easy for you to go into this position, stay here. And if you want to move farther down, you can lower down your blocks or put the blocks to the sides, hands to the floor, or holding your elbows. And crown of the head down, you choose. A few moments. Feel your knees bending, feel the hips ascending. Knees bending, hips ascending. Hands lower to blocks to the floor. Step back to that right leg, step back to the left, feel that upright push-up, come down to the knees, grab your bolster and slide it in. We're definitely using lots of props here. So we're going to set the blocks off to the side so they're not distracting you in the moment here. But I want you to come forward with Sphinx pose so your elbows are on the floor besides the bolster. And your heels are up, pushing into the wall with the knees lifting, okay? So if the knees are slightly off of the floor, that would be perfect if you could use the bolster as a balancing for your legs, pushing back, and then crown the head forwards. Press back into your heels. Now, as we balance right now into this next phase, I want you to get a feel when you press back into your heels. You feel that length. Actually, I don't really feel quadricep length. I feel like they are a little triggered in this. They're waking up. So what we'll do is slide the hands back, and when you lower your knees and tip them down, head lowers, push yourself up and back, and then tuck in your blanket next to your bolster and slide so your left hip is next to your bolster, so you're on your side, okay? So we'll take our, if you're a little close to the wall, you might scoot slightly away, but I don't want your knees to be pushing against the wall, okay? Some schools of thought might have your knee next to the wall to keep it, fixed in a frame, but that might be a little bit worrisome if you're stuck in a wall with your knee. So get a sandbag, place it across that right side, and then lengthen out. Just let the body reach its sides. Let the sides stretch. Yeah, even if it seems like it's partially inactive side sage pose, that's okay. Left hand holds the right wrist. Right arm has a direction of reaching. But feel that length. You don't have to follow this exact version of side sage. If you prefer your bolster, turn the other way and you have two bolsters, you can go on into that as well. Some people, this one might be a little bit of pressure in the shoulder joint. With a few more moments, try to tuck the left thigh as close to the bolster as it could go. It's almost going to feel like you're dragged back. So I want you to find yourself a little bit in with the left rib cage. So instead of it kind of flinging open and rotating, feel a little bit of a counter rotation. And the right hand might feel better on the floor by now because this is our direction. Okay? So we're going to move into crocodile pose, which is so nice for the front seams of the body and the lower back. So what you might have is a block under your forehead, you'll find out. But what the idea behind this is you're going to move from your side sage when you feel like it. If you don't want to leave this pose, no one's going to require you to do so. But you'll move so that you're face down on your bolster. And I'm just going to keep my sandbag on my lower back. I'm going to kind of pivot my body. So I'm still on my bolster. And I'm going to move the bolster so it does feel like it's right under my belly, kind of like belly organ squishing. And you might feel that you can lower down your forehead to the bolster. If you're any taller than me, your head's probably over here, so you might need a block, right, to go under your forehead. But I don't need any more props. And I'm going to scoot my bolster farther down towards my the front of my thighs and really get that sand so it is across the tailbone zone. And try to feel your feet touch into the wall. If they're too tucked in and you can't let the front of the thigh relax, then you're scrunched up too much. So forehead down, okay, or chin down, and let the emphasis be the front of the legs apart and relax the back of the pelvis. Okay, so feel in crocodile pose. Most crocodile poses are, the arms are forward, palms down. Some are out, but it's a prone position. Okay, so give a few moments to let your back release around the tailbone. Belly moves into the bolster. Make sure your neck is comfortable, so if you do have your chin to that bolster, we don't want to cause pressure at the nape of the neck. Now we're going to come into side stage with the right hip down. So I want you to roll a little bit to your right hip, and you're going to find ways to get into this that are kind of creative. So when you move your right thigh next to your bolster, you've done all kinds of restorative poses, but different ways to get into these, huh? So I'm kind of creeping from my crocodile status to my sage status. And they have similar sage qualities, I think. You have that sand on the outer limb here of the hip. And then when you lengthen your side, really try to go deep into that reach. Fully reach through the left arm. Feel where the waist is lengthening. Feel where the tailbone is centered. You know, with a few more moments here, try to let the side muscles work their way to length. This is important before we come up to work with our standing poses. To feel this radius of motion through your arm and your hip, even though it's pretty easy going right now. Now move that left arm back down, sweep it down to your side, and then let the sand actually be pushed away. And you're going to come around to table, and then move the bolster aside, okay? Take a block near your feet, and then as you come back to downward facing dog, I want you to press back and up, let your hips work their way to balancing. Sitting bones and balance, heels reaching to the floor. Okay, walk your hands back to your feet, and once your seat gets to touching the wall, noticing if this is helpful, if I scoot my heels away from the wall, and I feel my seat at the wall for the full awareness of the back of the legs. Okay, so with that range, bend your knees, and then your blanket's gonna go aside for now, and you're gonna scoot your feet a little farther forward. Place the block between the knees, and then come on up. I want you to reach back with your back, so you are kind of leaning down, feeling your seat to the wall. Try to keep this balance with the knees. Hold the block with your hands overhead. That same knee balance apart. And then feel if you can actually stand up out of the balance. Bend your elbows and place that block back to the wall. Okay. Get the feet a little closer. So you're going to have this nice arch through your spine. And move your elbows closer and still. So keep moving in towards those elbows. Okay? Balance through the arms. Stretch your arms straight up, in breath, and out breath. Let's go ahead and shift. We're gonna take this into the second layer of the practice right now. So what I want you to do is any shoulder rolls that you need, you're gonna grab a chair or a stool, whatever you have. And the first thing is that we'll move the stool or chair away from the wall so that when you touch it with your hands, you can step back with both feet to the base of the wall, and you can reach your seat at the wall, okay? So use this chair as a support for all your stretches, okay? So what we'll take is our right foot under the chair seat, our left heel to the base of the wall, and bend both knees, so you have no flexibility achievements quite yet. Feel both arms straight, and then lengthen the right and the left leg, so they're poker straight here. And maybe you push the chair a little bit forwards, okay? I want you to have the balance in your left calf, that you start to scoot your right foot farther forward so you can feel your left calf stretch. Both feet parallel, right? Right foot under chair seat. Breathe. Right hand on your sacrum and turn the waist, the ribs, the chest muscles to your right. Okay, so get a feel for this pattern of a little bit of curiosity. So we have the rhythm of now rotation in the rib cage, and then back to your breathing as a focal point. If it was never a focal point until now, see if you can rest the movement of your breath, and that supports your inspiration to be in the pose, huh? But for now, we keep the arms so they're close in. And then when you come back down with that right hand, feel that right foot pressing down. Hands are going to hold the sides of the chair. This is important, that you're on the side of the chair with your fingers wrapped around the side. If you have a stool instead, that might be a little different, right? Something that's not chair-like but has height, okay? So now when you step the right foot back, I want you to lean forward so you're in up dog. You're going to lift up the chest muscles, stretch through the waist. Yeah, feel the hip points reaching forward to the belly button and up. And then come back, switch feet under the chair. As the left foot steps under, the right foot is straight back, toes forward on back foot, parallel all your things. Parallel all those good things. Straight forward with your feet, with your toes, with your nose. Anchor your attention back to your breath. Everything is in line here. I guess it's as it should be. Now, if that right hip is kind of pushing down, if this right leg feels like it's lowering in, I want you to stabilize back into that heel, even if the heel is up at the wall a little bit. So feel what is more stabilizing and integrated for you, balancing flexibility and strength, right? So if I lift my heel a bit at the wall, I feel like that's kind of a step up for me for working in this pose. Okay, so that's an option. Right hand is on the chair seat, left hand is on the low back, it's right to the sacrum. I'm going to actually twist to my left. I can feel that in my left hip. I can lower down my right heel a little further down, as long as my foot on the back leg doesn't turn out. If it's turning out, I'm going to lift my heel back up at the wall. So feel the waist turn. Breathing. Now left arm goes up. Okay, sweep it down. Take half moon with the left leg. So we're going to slide the chair forward. We're going to go into Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. So when I reach forward with my the weight down into my left foot in my chair, well, my foot's not on my chair, but the weight is into my left foot and my weight on my hand on the chair, right? Lift your right foot up at the wall and then turn to, hopefully, the right side with your left foot down so that your chest is turning over. Yeah, this right foot is pushing into the wall. You want to feel it pushes. You don't have to do a big dance with it, but you want to feel like this is doing all this dynamic work for your left hip. It's all for the benefit of your hip. Hips and all, okay? So feel the lift. Let's give it another few seconds so that we don't get burned out on any of the poses. Bring the right hand down and directly change sides, but with this awareness of your spine into your buttock, into your leg. It's all rooted through the spinal cord, right? So I'm going to turn my right foot and switch sides. Right foot down, left foot up. Make sure your foot is up high enough at the wall, but you don't want to swing it up too high, right? Because this is not going to help your hip balance. So I want to feel like it's pressure in my buttock. It's like a glute pressure, right? So right hand down, turn the left foot out. Okay, stabilize onto your right leg. So feel when you start to turn to your right that it's almost as if you are rolling this right buttock down into the thigh muscle, but you're not trying to tuck your tailbone, right? This is not the focus right now. So, or hopefully not very much at all in your life, but get a feel when you turn left that we're trying to keep the organs, right, in a very healthy atmosphere. Part of the tucking tailbone problem is it's contraindicated, right, for the health of your organs, right? It kind of tamps down and clenches and causes that dissonance there. So we want to feel some freedom in our lower back quadrant, right? So it's a natural arch. The left arm flows up, the waist turns. Okay, it's still strengthening work. Breathe. It only helps. Feel if your foot goes up, feel if your foot goes down. Where is a good balance? Okay, this feels about good. Let's see in the screen if it is. It's the right height. Sometimes you have it down in your body muscle memory. Okay, now lower down to that left hand. Let's lower the left foot, thank goodness, and scoot the chair in, okay, towards the wall space. So you keep scooting it in. Turn to the wall and bring the left top foot back on the chair. That leg you were just lifting. I want you to bring your hands to push into the wall, but actually let the left knee relax. If it's lowering down, touching the chair, that's fine. So you might really stretch it farther back on through the seat of the chair or the stool. Okay. Walk your hands up at the wall. Feel the arch in that left side. Try to keep both sides arching as you slide the left foot down off the chair and switch foot on chair. Right foot back. Promote the opening of the front of the hip. Slide the hands down at the wall and slide the foot off and take a seat in the chair. Carefully pull the chair maybe a little towards the wall if you're far away. Right foot crosses up to the left knee. We're going to keep that arm still interactive, so I'm going to hold the sides of the chair. Now, if your hip flexors are kind of a little toned up right now from all the standing work, you might scoot towards the edge of the seat, on the edge, So you get a little bit more hip stretch, okay? So you want to hold for a few moments. Now you can still hold and lean into the stretch, but I can still hold the back of the chair and reach forward. If you're on a stool and you don't have any back to hold, right, you could hold a belt behind you, okay? So you want something where you feel like you're holding on with your hands, or you're onto the wall with your hands, okay? Both are good. Right now the wall might feel really good. Try to sink into this one for a good 30 more seconds here. Yes, I want you to get enough time with this leaning into the hip. We're gonna kind of fine tune and polish the rest of the poses, focusing on hip and legs and lower back. So if I lower my hands at the wall, I find a little bit more stretch into my lower back. Come up and switch the leg. Just simply lower the right foot, cross the left foot up to the right knee. Keep the left knee in its open state. Okay, and then if the top of your thighs feel restricted, right, you want to stay upright, but you might feel comfortable leaning forwards, hands at wall or hands back to the bars of the chair, leaning forwards. Remember, hands can go up high or down lower at the wall as well. As long as your wall is well. Now notice where the lower back is gently releasing. I feel this primarily sensation depth is in my left upper thigh and my inner thigh and my hip. It's waking up a little further. So it's kind of like when we move in and out of the shapes, we're certainly doing a bit of a kind of a washing through. So when we come down to sit, you're going to feel like we've taken the legs down to the same position again, but it's kind of cleansing around the knee and the joint tissues. We're moving from one side to the next. So uncross, and then I want you to carefully lower down to the floor, and then move your chair a little bit out onto the mat. And I've got my blanket, and I'm going to take a seat on top of it, even though the bolster might want to be part of it. So I'm going to sit on my blanket with my right knee pointing to the wall and the left leg under the chair. Okay. So I want you to feel that the blanket is enough of a support for you. So if having it on this quarter fold feels like it's just not quite balancing, just flatten out the blanket a little further, make it wider. So sandbag on the right thigh. You can have a block or a ball under the right knee. And you're going to lean into your chair. So kind of the idea of this cleansing or kind of washing through and rinsing, right, these areas that have been kind of stocky and holding us up for some shapes. So feel when you lean into that chair, you're either holding the back bar of the chair. Maybe some of you are able to do that, or your head is in your hand. That works for me. And my right hand could be up, over the side of my face. It could be behind me. So get a feel here. What works for you? Right? It might be that you really crave holding this bar of the chair, so you're going to keep pulling it closer to you till you get it. And that might be really helpful for you to get that deeper stretch. You can also get a belt and lasso that in around the back of the chair. And that is great for kind of helping me get this reach. I love that. It could be any height. And do this. Open the right arm to the wall, bring the right hand to the wall, left hand lowers over to the right knee, and we twist to the right, to the wall space. Feel the twist. Feel a fairly strong upper rib rotation. Okay, now you're going to turn to the chair, and I want you to take the stand to the left thigh, and then you're going to take a crisscross position so the left foot is under the chair while you're simply sitting cross-legged, okay? So left foot is under the chair, stand is on my left thigh. I'm going to put my block back under my right knee because I like that. And I'm also going to put a block under my left knee and then lean forwards, okay? You can scoot your chair a little bit away. You could certainly find your forehead on the chair or on your hands. And let the lower back release. Feel your spine rounding. And as you come up, when you switch sides, it'd be nice if you can swap the legs. So the right leg under the chair, left leg has sand on it. So I just turn to my left. I have the same sanding on that top thigh. And then when I lean to my chair, I'm going to get the handle of the belt, but you'll work on this cross weave, like the back weaving of your ribs into your lower back muscles, your paraspinals. Focus on this width into your back, the reach to that left arm. Now, when you start to move your left arm either to the back or to the leg or to turn your head to that right arm, whatever kind of feels like it's kind of washing through, kind of rinsing off some of that grippiness in your sideways, like look, feel with that, look inside, feel that area. And then when you slide to come up, right hand to left knee, left hand back to the wall, twist. Yeah, make this twist approachable for actually feeling your sides of your waist. Take a deeper twist if that's feeling nourishing for your spinal column. A little deeper maybe. Come back forward, move the sand to your right thigh, cross the right foot in front of the left knee, and then come into this final forward bend. Okay, so I'm in a cross-legged position, right foot forward of left knee, left shin for some. Now, noticing your back, when we come into our final pose today, it would likely be helpful if we all do an inversion, right? So you're going to choose legs up the wall or chair shoulder stand. But if your back and your hip flexors are feeling a little sensitive to this pretty interactive sequencing of shapes today, it was quite kind of pose potluck of sorts. So it depends on how it's settling into your nervous system. So you might want a very basic inversion. It's something you can relax completely into, not put a lot of energy into putting it together. So carry into this a focus for a few more moments of your back releasing, whether head is down to lower into your hands, relaxing your forehead. Now with your hands and the arm muscles helping you come up, we're going to move the chair a little bit forward and then move both legs under the chair. Now that the mind has kind of turned into this inward, when you stretch your back body, right, it's interesting how if both legs are now under your chair straight through, this whole current of energy through the spine of the legs and the visceral spinal column. Give it a couple more moments. If you have a chair where you've got the little rungs at the back, it's really nice to put your feet up on those and stretch your calves. You really got to kind of get your toes to lift up to the rungs of the chair. Nice stretch. Now plug in your kind of visual current into your lower back. Okay, now we want to let that area really release and our legs up. So when we slide back on the chair, we're going to push our chair over to the side, just place it away. Watch out for other parts. Okay, and take your bolster up to the wall. Completely different sequencing here, huh? And then when you sit up, it's nice. You can just put your blanket kind of almost not quite to the middle of your mat, but put it away from your bolster towards the other side of your mat. And then I've got my sandbag. All I need is my sandbag and my bolster. Well, the blanket as well. Now, when you come around, if you have an eye pillow, grab that as well. And when you come around to lifting your legs up, get your rear at the wall, really get close. So your sitting bones would touch the wall, right? Some parts of you is probably slightly already getting into the pose. But when you roll and let your legs swing up, I want you to bring your back muscles so it's almost as if this, you anticipate your hips are up and the back is arching. It's like it feels sometimes good on your back to have this kind of arch. So that's something to notice is the blanket under your head now and all those things about getting your back into this natural arch. No tail tucking, right? The pelvic floor is the opposite of prolapse. Things are starting to tone up, right? Bladder, toning in the organs. So keep in the pose for a bit. And if you want to use your sand, you can use it across the bottoms of the feet. Okay. So tip back, knees bend, scoop up your sandy bag, push the sandy bag up, and voila. Okay. We are here. So if the belt is something of interest to you, you can belt up your legs. It is a calming influence. It's not like it's all about alignment on this one. Anyway, getting my belt, wrangling my belt. It's not about the putting it in perfect alignment, because it seems like when you have sand across your feet, your legs are up at the wall off your bolster, likely they're in good alignment. But when I have my belt and I tighten it down, higher up on my thigh, tighten it down, it's calming is what it is. It's like a grip on your legs. So it generally induces some calm. Now with the arms open and the back muscles in the shoulders separate, If you feel the interest in stretching them behind you or back to T or cactus, you choose. But feel where the muscles in the back of the arms can actually exist with some spaciousness, and then let that interpretation of spaciousness when you're viscerally pushing into it kind of compute internally through the organs, giving them each enough space for the right amount of circulation to function optimally. So belly moves with the breath. I mean, we're breathing with lung force, but you know, the diaphragm is part of it too. So belly breathing isn't all out of the conversation. So, but I do want you to think of your ribs moving, right? They're basically, you want to feel the lateral motion of the ribs and the lungs. Let your eyes close from top to bottom. Surrender here. Breathe with soft and smooth breath. Now feel that natural arch through the back of the waist. Feel the band of the shoulders start to move so they're both either reaching out to your arms, out to the sides, or maybe your hands are resting on your belly. Receiving your practice fully and completely. Now unbuckle a belt. If there's no belt, no change there. Feel the knees bend. Scoop the feet off the wall. You're scooping up a sandbag again that way. Leg press, knees towards chest. Now, as I let my legs actually massage into the organs, right, there's a little squeeze there. As you get rid of your sand, however way you want to get rid of that, you're going to let your feet rest, either together at the wall, knees out, or separated at the wall, knees out, right? It's both a perspective for the flesh of the adductors, right? They're both adductors, unless they change their department. But you'll notice that you can sense which one you prefer, I think. And they're both good, right? Especially right now in this phase at the end. So I would notice the top of the thigh, the hip flexor, what feels more centering for you. Maybe hands at the legs, pressing them to the wall, feet together, knees out or legs apart. Okay, feel where your hands push, be as high up on the leg as you can, right, either direction. Legs are out, or feet are together, they're both okay in the hip flexors, they're different, right? This one might be a little more challenging with the legs separated in this pattern, separated leg. Okay, now clutch the knees into the chest, and with all good things in practicing, let the spine reach through the back of the brain all the way up, roll to your side, and keep that continuum in your practice. Move up from the back of the brain, spine lengthens, Hands on the lap, sitting in a cross-legged position. Feel the brain and the eyes closed top to bottom, brain from top to heart. Reach your hands up to a prayer position in front of the heart, palms gently pressed together. And let's combine our focus in all our homes, feeling the presence in practice. Try to reach out your tentacles of thought to that. And with an inner peace from practice, outwards to others, inhale slow. And exhale, bow it into your heart. Namaste. Okay.
I don't know if we recorded that one.